Jose lived in a residential area on the outskirts of the city. It was a place where old, 2- or 3-story, slightly tilted houses were closely clustered together. Balconies hung from above, perpetually draped with clothes. Here and there, you could see flowers, tenderly cared for by the housewives. In some places, the plaster had long peeled off these houses, and the yawning holes awaited someone to finally patch them up. And through the narrow paved streets, one could barely pass except on a bicycle. "Juanita, you went to the market again without me. Damn it, I asked you to take me with you." "Oh, stop it. I can't remember everything for all of you." Such emotional dialogues could often be heard while passing along the houses. It often escalated into women's quarrels, drawing in the whole neighborhood. People would come out onto the balconies and couldn't even remember how it all started, each trying to outshout their neighbor. But as soon as you reached the end of the street, you found yourself in a small park or square, drowned in greenery. Here, elderly gentlemen usually sat on benches, attentively observing everything. And young mothers strolled with strollers or played with their little ones. Right here, you could find a secluded spot somewhere deep in the park to rest and immerse yourself in your thoughts. It was precisely here that Jose liked to be, a dark-haired, sturdy boy of about 10. Judging by his build, he had to do a lot of physical work. He usually came here alone and sat on a bench in the depths of the square. "Hey, Antonio, come to me quickly. I'll carry you," some caring mother would shout. And the happy son would run to her with all his might to snuggle against her warm cheek and feel her tender kiss. How difficult it was for Jose in those moments. But he came back to the park again and again, where happy parents walked with their children. He loved to watch them. In those moments, the boy imagined having a mom and dad. His parents passed away too early in his life. We were probably very happy, the boy thought. He had a very vague image of his mother's face, but in his memories remained her gentle hands, which loved to stroke his black, resin-like curls. Her name was Lucia. Jose tried to remember her facial features, but his childhood memory stubbornly refused to do so. He didn't remember his father at all. He only knew his name was Alberto. No, he wasn't an orphan. The boy was raised by his grandmother Sofia, who cherished her grandson dearly. After the death of her daughter, Lucia, Jose's mother, he became the only family she had left. "You're the only thing keeping me in this world," she often told her grandson. Jose found these words very unsettling. After all, she was his only family too. What if she wasn't there anymore? Jose tried to push these thoughts away. "Why is life so unfair, Grandma?" "What do you mean? Everyone else has parents. But I don't. It's all God's will. They must be needed more there. The Lord always takes the best. But what about me? I'm left without parents. But you have me. We have each other. 2 family members, 2 loving hearts. That's enough to be happy in this world." Sofia was a stout elderly woman in her 70s. Like all senoras of her age, she wore long skirts with bright shirts on top. She hid her gray hair under a scarf, but her lips were always painted with bright red lipstick. A woman remains a woman even at 70. They lived modestly in a small old corner apartment, but there was always food on the table. "Jose, would you like me to make your favorite tortilla? With tomatoes and cheese?" "Of course, just the way you like it." "Grandma, I adore you." The woman immediately went to the stove and started bustling to please her grandson with his favorite dish. They had a very warm relationship that they cherished. Yes, all grandmothers love their grandchildren. But no love can replace parents. Sofia understood that perfectly well. Sofia's tanned face often had a pensive expression. Jose noticed this and understood that something was troubling his grandmother. "Grandma, my dear, beloved, have I upset you?" "Of course not, dear. I was just thinking how nice it would be to buy you a new shirt. Your birthday is coming up soon. And you should look like a true senor." The boy smiled sweetly. One day, while strolling through the park, Jose noticed an old musician sitting on a bench. He was a tall, gray-haired man wearing a hat with wide brims. Despite his age, he had a slim figure and a straight posture not typical for someone of his age. It was evident that he was no ordinary person. "Hey, kid, do you like music?" the old man asked, holding an old guitar in his hands. "I don't know, maybe I do, maybe I don't," Jose replied indifferently. He truly didn't know. Music never played in their house. But the old man addressed the boy again with a question. "Would you like me to play for you?" "Why not?" Jose agreed to his offer. And the old man started playing. A lyrical melody poured from the strings, warming Jose's soul somehow. It felt like he had heard this melody before, in his distant childhood. As if someone had sung this song to him already. And these memories only made him warmer. In an instant, his indifference vanished, and he became interested in the stranger. "What melody is this?" he asked. "Oh, I heard it many years ago from a man named Alberto." It was his lover's favorite melody. He played it beautifully. It was impossible not to fall in love with the sounds of his guitar. The same thing was happening now with Jose. The melody captivated him. The man's name was Pedro. He was once a professional musician, playing in a cozy restaurant on an open terrace, setting the evening atmosphere. Sometimes he even participated in street festivals and celebrations, playing live music. He was very talented, handsome, and adored by the audience. All of this was long ago. And now he was spending his days in complete solitude. The boy and the old man started meeting in the park in the evenings. Pedro taught Jose to play the guitar, and music became their bond. Their evenings were filled with the sounds of guitar strings and cheerful laughter. "Music is magic that can melt even the coldest heart," Pedro liked to say. And the boy had a dream. For the first time in his life, he understood what he truly wanted, to become a musician. One day, as they sat in the park, the boy asked, "Why are you always here?" "I have nowhere to go. I don't have a family. There are no relatives left either. No one except my faithful friend, the guitar. Promise me that you won't abandon your dream and will strive for it with all your might. You have a whole life ahead of you. As for me, I only have one wish left, to pass on all my knowledge and musical experience to you." "I promise," Jose replied with sadness in his eyes. He didn't want to lose this connection. But he understood that Pedro was old, and soon he, like his parents once did, would leave this world, taking Jose with him. Grandma Sofia knew nothing about her grandson's new friend. And she certainly didn't suspect his passion for playing the guitar. Jose didn't tell her for the best reasons. He knew they didn't have money for a guitar, and it would greatly upset his grandmother. And he didn't want to upset her. Jose's birthday was approaching. He was about to turn 11 years old very soon. What can I give him to make him happy? Sofia was tormented by the same question every time. She wanted to give him something unusual, although they barely had enough for everyday things. But not this time. Grandma started saving money 6 months ago. She wanted to take her grandson to a restaurant he had never been to before. And she herself couldn't remember the last time she visited such places. "I'll dress him in the best shirt and trousers. The boy needs to get used to being around people in decent society," Sofia reflected in anticipation of the upcoming family celebration. "Jose, dear, what do you think about going to lunch at a restaurant?" she suggested on his birthday. The boy was amazed by this unexpected idea. He had never been to restaurants, but he understood perfectly well that they couldn't afford this entertainment. His heart raced with excitement at the thought of what they would do there. And did they have enough money for it? "How do you imagine it, Grandma?" he asked with curiosity. "Oh, dear, it will be wonderful," exclaimed the woman, taking his hand. "You'll see that you can have a pleasant time in such a place and enjoy delicious food." They left the house and headed to the local restaurant, which they had seen many times but never visited. As they approached the door, Jose felt excitement, not knowing what awaited him inside. As soon as they entered, the air was filled with the aroma of delicious food. Soft light and cozy atmosphere made Jose feel at home. They chose a table by the window and began to study the menu, discussing what they would like to try. "I don't even know what to order. There's so much here. Grandma, some of these dishes I'm seeing for the first time." "Don't worry, Jose, you'll get used to it. You have a whole life ahead of you to discover many things. Let's get the duck confit. And I'll have the rooster and wine dish. I've never tried anything like it before." When the waitress brought them their ordered dishes, the boy and his grandmother couldn't help but express their delight. They enjoyed the delicious food, chatting and laughing as if they were the only patrons in the restaurant. "Your bill," the waitress laid the check with a multitude of numbers on the table, and the grandmother's uplifted mood instantly disappeared. She realized that they didn't have enough money saved up to pay for the tasty holiday dinner. Jose understood this from her expression. "We'll stay a little longer," suddenly announced the boy to the waitress as he saw something that could help solve their problem. In a dark corner of the restaurant, there was an abandoned guitar on a chair. Apparently, musicians used to entertain the patrons with their music. "Well, why not give it a try? I don't have any experience performing in front of an audience, but I think now is the time." Jose calmly got up from his chair and, without saying a word, headed for the guitar. "Can I play a few pieces?" He addressed the restaurant manager with a question. "Can you?" The man in the pristine white shirt looked at him questioningly but didn't object. Grandma Sofia didn't understand what was happening. Her grandson took the guitar in his hands and sat on a chair in front of the restaurant patrons. He began to play the same melody he heard in the park from the old musician. Both the restaurant staff and the patrons, everyone turned their attention to him. The boy played as if he was filtering every sound, every note through himself, his thoughts, and feelings. His music penetrated every heart. But especially attentive was the man sitting at a table all alone. Despite his absorbed playing, Jose also noticed him. His facial features even seemed somewhat familiar, even very close and familiar. "Jose?" suddenly spoke the man when the last chords sounded. But there was doubt in his voice. "Dad?" The boy responded with the same bewilderment. Yes, it was his father Alberto, whom he had believed dead for many years. Both father and son were deeply moved. The audience shifted their attention from the music to the dialogue between the two relatives, watching them closely. They stood facing each other, trying to find familial features. And when they succeeded, smiles lit up their faces. But what had happened? Why didn't Jose know his father was alive, and why hadn't his father sought a meeting with him? The answer lay with Sofia, Jose's grandmother. She had intervened in his father's and mother's relationship. The father left, and shortly after his departure, the mother passed away. The grandmother blamed herself for what had happened, but it was already impossible to change anything. But let's go back a few years, when Jose's parents were still together. Alberto and Lucia were a beautiful couple. He was a handsome man with a tan complexion and dark hair slicked back, which added to his allure. His toned physique doubled his natural attractiveness. It's no wonder Sofia immediately disliked him. After all, attractive men like him tend to be frivolous and easily drawn to other women who constantly surround them. "Lucia, he will cheat on you left and right. You'll be unhappy with him," she would insist to her daughter. "Mom, we love each other. And that's what matters most," her daughter would object. It's worth mentioning that Lucia was not inferior in beauty and allure to her husband. With her beautiful dark eyes, long bronzed hair that glistened, and full, curly lashes, she could enchant anyone. She always accentuated her slim figure with vibrant dresses, and high heels were a constant accessory. Yes, Lucia knew how to dress beautifully and valued herself, which made her even more irresistible. And her voice, what a wonderful captivating voice she had. Whenever she sang a melody, everyone around would immediately start listening. In those moments, Alberto fell even more in love with his wife. You've given me the greatest happiness a person can have. Lucia, I will always be grateful to the Lord for giving me you, he would say. No, I should thank him for giving me you, she would reply. They could endlessly exchange words of love and admiration. It seemed like nothing could disturb their family happiness. But deep down, each of them feared losing the other. And Alberto feared it the most. After all, his Lucia was not only beautiful but also talented. How can I keep her? She's so talented. And I'm just an ordinary man. Such thoughts often crossed the mind of the loving husband. Despite his external beauty, he did not possess any outstanding abilities. And the musical gift bestowed upon his wife by nature tormented him. One thought plagued him: I am not worthy of her. Alberto, today I am singing at the festival. Do you remember? You promised to be there. Today? Have you forgotten? All our friends and relatives will come to see me. No, I won't be able to make it. In fact, Alberto had no urgent matters that day. I can't bear to see other men admiring my Lucia, he thought at that moment. Yes, it was jealousy. It consumed his insides, robbed him of peace, and clouded his mind. Instead of supporting his wife, he headed to the nearest bar. It was fairly empty inside. At one table, a couple of gentlemen were playing cards. The rest of the sparse crowd was drinking tequila, accompanied by smoking cigars. After looking around and not recognizing anyone, the man decided to seclude himself in the corner. A waiter approached him. "Give me a cup of strong coffee without sugar and a shot of whiskey." The waiter nodded obligingly and left. And Alberto immersed himself in his thoughts, not noticing a stranger joining him. "Can I offer you some tequila?" Alberto snapped out of his reverie for a moment, but didn't hear the question. "Can I offer you some tequila?" "Waiter, 2 tequilas for me and this gentleman." The stranger didn't wait for a response, so he decided to place the order himself. It was only now that Alberto noticed there was a completely unfamiliar person sitting in front of him. "Who are you?" "My name is Pedro. I can see you're dealing with some issues. Can I help in any way?" "Who are you?" Alberto repeated his question more insistently. "I sometimes play and sing in this restaurant. My wife also sings. Her name is Lucia. She has a magical voice. And she is divine beautiful. And only I make her life gray and miserable," Alberto said, becoming so unhappy that the stranger wanted to comfort him immediately. "Why did you decide like that? Is it really so important to have some talents? After all, not everyone is gifted. Any talent is given from above. And its owner must demonstrate his mastery to everyone around. Such is fate." "Yes, but what about me? At some point, there will be another talented musician who will be next to my Lucia. And what will happen to me? I can't lose her." Alberto exclaimed. "Yes, I see you're quite the jealous one." "No, my thoughts are quite real. Today she performs at a festival where there will be many other bright artists like her. I think I can help you. It will just take immense desire and persistence. I'm ready." "Sophia, where is your loving husband?" Sophia asked her daughter when she didn't find him at home in the evening. "He must have urgent matters since he didn't make it for dinner," her daughter replied calmly, without a shadow of doubt. She really wasn't worried because she trusted her beloved. "I know what kind of affairs these types can have. Probably pleasuring some brunette in a second-rate hotel room right now." Such thoughts never crossed Lucia's mind, so she just smiled in response. "How can such things come to your mind, Mom? You have a rich imagination. I just want my daughter to be happy. And your husband lies to you. You'll see, I'm right." Despite such loud accusations, Lucia didn't attach any importance to them and didn't get upset at all. In any case, it didn't show on her lovely face. Alberto returned home tired, closer to midnight. He took off his coat and sat down right by the entrance. Lucia didn't ask him any extra questions and greeted him as she always did. How was my beloved husband's day? I see it wasn't easy? Yes, sorry, I had to stay longer today. Dinner was on the table, but Alberto didn't even touch it. Lucia pushed a pack of cigarettes lying on the table towards him. Take one, she said. Thanks. He lit up. Lucia silently watched him, not asking any questions. When Alberto finished his cigarette, she immediately said, "Let's go to bed. It's very late already." Alberto gladly accepted her offer. But the late-night returns became a pattern. At first, Lucia didn't ask questions, but when they started to arise, Alberto couldn't provide any coherent answers. "Alberto, I think it's time we talked," Lucia greeted her husband after another late-night return. "I'm very tired, let's do it tomorrow." "No, I think we shouldn't postpone it any longer. I've heard similar excuses from you before, but so far, I haven't received a clear answer. I have a lot of work. I work too, but I come home on time to cook you a delicious dinner. But more and more often, I find myself cooking only for myself now. I have nothing else to say to you." Lucia didn't know what to do. So she decided to confide in her mother. "I told you he would cheat on you. But you didn't want to listen to me." Now Sophia had more reasons to accuse her son-in-law of infidelity. Moreover, her acquaintance reported seeing him leaving the hotel 2 blocks away. Here was a reason to finally get rid of him. No, she didn't tell her daughter about this. Sophia decided to start with Alberto. "How's my son-in-law doing? Since when have my affairs concerned you?" Antonio replied with surprise. "Since you started seeing other women. You've been seeing. And don't you dare lie to me. You've been misled." "I have no one else but Lucia," the man replied calmly, accustomed to Sophia's attacks. "How do you explain your late returns then?" "That's none of your business." "You're mistaken. Lucia is my daughter, and I won't allow her to be deceived. Don't interfere in our lives. We'll handle it ourselves." But this time Sophia decided to go all the way. She told Lucia everything about seeing her husband leaving the hotel late at night. But she had to lie to remove any shadow of doubt that Alberto was cheating on her. "I should have listened to you after all, Mom," Lucia said, sobbing on Sophia's shoulder. "Don't cry, he's not worth it. You're such a beauty. Everything will be fine for you in this life." After that, they packed Alberto's things and put them outside the door. When he returned and saw the suitcases by the front door, he understood everything. He couldn't do without Sophia. "Lucia, let me explain everything to you. You had the chance, but you didn't take it. There's nothing more to talk about now. Leave." Lucia said this through the closed door and couldn't see his face, full of despair. Alberto didn't know what to do. He had no one in this city. After some thought, he decided on a desperate step, to leave here forever. To leave this city once and for all. Maybe then he could forget his Lucia, and she would finally find someone as beautiful and talented as her. Yes, that's what he had to do. He had no other options. He was indeed at the hotel. Denying it was pointless. But he couldn't bring himself to confess to his wife that all this time he had been with a man who taught him to play the guitar. It seemed implausible in his situation. Although he took this step for her sake, to become more worthy of his wife. And he left. It wasn't easy for Lucia to endure this loss. Despite everything, she continued to love him. Her sadness was alleviated by music, to which she now devoted more time. But soon Lucia realized that she was expecting a child. This news delighted her very much. After all, a part of her beloved would forever remain with her. But unfortunately, Alberto left in an unknown direction, and she couldn't tell him about it. "Mom, I have wonderful news for you." "Did you find a man?" "Well, no, of course not." "Mom, I'm going to have a baby." "A child? From that scoundrel?" "Don't speak about him like that." "And how should I talk about him when he's just a passerby, that's all?" He swept you off your feet and then left. I want this child. And who will need you later with such baggage? You'll be alone raising him. How can you say such a thing? You're a mother too. Yes, and I know perfectly well what it means to raise a child. How much strength and health it takes. But Lucia had already made up her mind. Exactly 9 months later, she gave birth to a beautiful boy, whom she named Jose. He looked so much like Alberto, the same black eyes, the same black curls. Sophia hated him even more for that. All day long, she would drill into her daughter that she was now unwanted by anyone. Soon, Lucia fell ill. The only thing that brought her joy was her baby. She could spend hours playing with him, and it brought her immense pleasure. When the boy turned 2, she was gone. Sophia had to take on the upbringing of her grandson. Over time, her dislike for the baby began to fade into the past. With each passing day, she loved him more and more. Whether she began to feel guilty or she really needed time to get used to this little person. One evening, there was a knock on the door. Sophia wasn't expecting anyone, so she didn't rush to open the door. Finally, she decided to and was immediately stunned. Alberto stood before her. Still as handsome, but slightly thinner with duller eyes. I tried to forget her, but I couldn't. But now you'll have to. Lucia is no more. How? She passed away last year. But then Alberto heard some light footsteps behind Sophia. Lucia! He exclaimed. And then a little curly head appeared from behind the grandmother. Who's this little one? This is my grandson Jose. Where is he from? Did Lucia have a child? How old is he? He's 3 years old. Did she have a man? No, she had no one else but you. Then he's my son. No, he's my grandson. Suddenly Sophia vividly imagined Alberto taking her grandson away, leaving her completely alone. After all, he was the father, so he had all the rights to the child. But in that moment, a plan formed in her mind. You won't get him. I'll tarnish your name. I'll tell everyone that you're a scoundrel and cheated on your wife left and right. I'll put you behind bars, but I won't give you Jose. You can't do this to me. He's my child. Your child? Then where have you been all this time, Daddy? Why did your child grow up without a father? Alberto had nothing to say. He knew what this woman was capable of, and he knew it would be difficult to prove his paternity. And this time, he had to give up his own child. But let's return to the restaurant, where Alberto finally had the opportunity to reclaim his son. They stood together, embracing, both crying uncontrollably. The other diners seemed to share the same emotions. Some were crying, some couldn't hide their smiles of joy. And the waiter approached, extending his hand to the boy. Whether in gratitude for his guitar playing or because he recognized and forgave the father, nobody remembered the bill for the celebratory meal. It remained untouched on the table. Thank you, Grandma, for the best meal of my life. Grandma smiled and hugged him tightly. The veil of sadness finally lifted from her eyes, and Jose saw them sparkle. The father nodded in agreement and, holding hands with his son and supporting Grandma Sophia, they headed home, feeling happiness and warmth in their hearts. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.